Hello everyone, today Half Fan continues to tell 5 stories about life. Please listen.
Story 246. The Flute's Melody Through the Fog. This story deeply explores the theme of optimism and the ability to find hope even in the most difficult circumstances. It tells the journey of a woman who inspires her community with her unwavering belief. In a small village nestled deep within the Pyrenees Mountains of France, where fog frequently blanketed the valleys and the sound of cowbells echoed on the hillsides, lived an elderly woman named Genevieve. Genevieve was a baker, renowned throughout the region not only for her crispy, fragrant bread but also for her unyielding optimism. Even when the harshest winter arrived, when snow covered every path and supplies ran low, Genevieve always found a reason to smile and a way to help others. Then, a mysterious epidemic struck the village's livestock, their main source of livelihood. Thick, persistent fog settled in, cutting off the only road to town. Fear and despair enveloped the village. Even the strongest individuals began to lose hope. Genevieve also felt rising anxiety, but she remembered her late grandmother's words, "In the thickest fog, that's when we need to find our own light." Her grandmother believed that even when things seemed dire, there was always something to hope for, to strive for. The village became gloomy. People closed their doors, immersed in fear and despair. Genevieve knew she couldn't sit idly by. She began to act. Every morning, before sunrise, she lit a candle in her bakery. She used the remaining ingredients to bake the smallest loaves of bread. Just enough for everyone to have a light meal. She didn't have much, but she shared what she had. When she delivered the warm bread to each home, she brought not just food but also a smile, a word of encouragement. She tirelessly sought glimmers of hope. She began to play her old wooden flute, its cheerful, familiar melodies echoing through the village. At first, people only listened in silence, but gradually, her flute's melody seemed to dispel the fog in their hearts. A few children began to come out of their homes, listening to the music. Then adults also peeked out the doors, looking at the flickering candle light from her bakery. Whenever someone wanted to give up, Genevieve would tell them an old story about failed harvests, storms, and how their ancestors overcame them with faith and unity. She didn't promise anything unrealistic, but she reminded them of their inner strength and the ability to find beauty even in hardship. One morning, as Genevieve's flute melody echoed through the valley, a medical team from the town, who had been lost in the fog for days, suddenly heard the sound. They followed the music and finally reached the village. Thanks to their help, the epidemic was brought under control. The fog also gradually lifted, revealing the blue sky once more. The village was saved, and Genevieve, with her unwavering optimism and small but meaningful actions, became a guiding light for the community. She proved that even in the darkest times, an optimistic heart and an unyielding belief can dispel all fog, not just for oneself, but also for those around. Genevieve's flute, now, was not just music, it was also a reminder of the power of hope and the resilience of the human spirit. The lesson learned. The story of the flute's melody through the fog profoundly illustrates the theme, optimism and the ability to find hope even in the most difficult circumstances. The core lesson here is that even when facing severe adversity and pervasive despair, maintaining an optimistic spirit, actively seeking and spreading hope, along with small acts of love, can make a tremendous difference, not only for oneself but also for the entire community. Genevieve, despite facing the epidemic and the village's isolation, did not allow herself to sink into despair. She proactively acted, using what she had, bread, her flute, stories, to spread hope and connect the community. Her steadfast optimism became a guiding light that helped the entire village overcome its difficulties. The inspiring lessons are: the power of attitude. Optimism is not about denying difficulties, but about choosing to face them with faith and hope. Small actions create big impact. Even the smallest acts of kindness can inspire and change a situation. Finding light in darkness, when everything seems bleak, actively seek or create a spark of hope for yourself and others. The role of an inspirer, an individual with an optimistic spirit, can become a source of strength and belief for an entire community. Unity from hope and optimism can bring people together, creating collective strength to overcome hardship.
Story 247. The Echo of the Mountain Spirit. This story deeply explores the theme that science is not just knowledge, but how we change the world, particularly emphasizing the importance of combining scientific knowledge with respect for nature and indigenous culture to create sustainable change. On the sacred slopes of Mount Yatsugate, Japan, where ancient temples nestled among cedar forests and wind chimes resonated in the crisp air, lived a young botanist named Kiko. Kiko was unlike other scientists caught in the tech race or grand projects. She carried advanced scientific knowledge of plant genetics and environmental conservation. She believed that science could solve all problems. She believed that science is not just knowledge, but how we change the world. However, when Kiko began studying rare plant species on Mount Yatsugate, she met with skepticism from the local community, especially from the indigenous people who lived in harmony with nature. They were the traditional guardians of the mountain, believing in the spirits of trees and rivers. They didn't trust Kiko's formulas and machines. They believed she would disturb the balance of nature. A rare orchid species, blooming only once a year, was facing extinction due to climate change and overharvesting. Kiko wanted to apply her modern propagation techniques to save the flower. However, the village elders objected. "This flower has a spirit," an elder said. "It will not bloom without the mountain's permission." Kiko felt frustrated. She considered these beliefs outdated, lacking scientific basis. But Kiko was a scientist with an unyielding learning spirit. Although initially skeptical, she began to spend time learning about the local people's culture and beliefs. She listened to stories about the mountain spirit, about how they respected every tree, every stream. She saw the profound wisdom in their harmonious way of life with nature, something her scientific books had never mentioned. She realized that science is not just about mechanically applying knowledge, but also about understanding the context, respecting cultural values, and integrating them harmoniously. She realized that to change the world, she needed not only knowledge but also understanding and humility. Kiko changed her approach. She not only used scientific techniques but also learned to perform traditional rituals with the local people, praying for the spirit of the flower and the mountain. She explained science to them in an understandable way, connecting it to their beliefs. She proved that science could be a powerful tool to protect nature, not to destroy it. With the cooperation of the local people, Kiko succeeded in propagating the rare orchid species. What was remarkable was that the orchids propagated using both science and traditional respect thrived even more vigorously. When the orchids bloomed, they were not only a scientific triumph, but also a testament to the harmony between knowledge and belief. Kiko not only saved a species, but also became a bridge between science and tradition, between the modern world and ancient culture. She proved that science is not just knowledge, it is a powerful tool to change the world, but only when it is combined with understanding, respect, and compassion. The echo from the spirit of Mount Kinabalu, now, was not just the whisper of the wind, it was also a tribute to the harmony between humanity and nature, between knowledge and heart. The lesson learned. The story of the echo of the mountain spirit profoundly illustrates the theme. Science is not just knowledge, but how we change the world. The core lesson here is that for science to truly create positive and sustainable change, it needs not only to be based on knowledge and technique, but also to be practiced with respect for culture, beliefs, and indigenous wisdom. A harmonious combination of science and tradition can create more powerful and meaningful solutions. Kiko, A brilliant scientist, learned that her knowledge would not reach its full potential if she did not understand and respect the non-scientific values of the local community. It was her shift in perspective and her integration of her methods with indigenous beliefs that allowed her to succeed in conservation and change the world for the better. The inspiring lessons are: science with humility. Scientific knowledge is powerful, but it needs to be combined with humility and respect for other values. Understanding context is key. To change the world effectively, one needs to understand not only the scientific problem but also the cultural and social context in which it exists. Harmony between science and tradition. Science and belief do not necessarily have to be opposing. They can complement each other to create holistic solutions. Changing your approach. When a method isn't working, don't be afraid to change your perspective and actions. Creating sustainable impact. Sustainable change requires not only technical solutions but also community participation and acceptance.
Story 248. The story of Vigo and the Ice Bridge. This story deeply explores the theme that continuous learning is essential for personal growth and adapting to a changing world. It tells the journey of an old man who finds new inspiration in life. In a small, remote town in Norway, where deep fjords cut through majestic mountains and the aurora borealis danced in the night sky, lived an old craftsman named Vigo. Vigo was renowned for the sturdy wooden bridges he had built throughout the region. Based on traditional techniques passed down through generations, he prided himself on knowing everything there was to know about construction. For Vigo, learning was accumulating experience from what had been proven. He believed that, when you stop learning, you stop growing. But in his mind, he had reached the pinnacle of learning. However, as time passed, climate change began causing unprecedented blizzards and severe frosts. Vigo's traditional wooden bridges, no matter how sturdy, were severely damaged by ice and wind. The townspeople struggled with travel and transporting goods. Vigo felt helpless and frustrated. His old knowledge seemed insufficient to cope with the new challenges. He began to doubt the value of what he had dedicated his life to. One winter, when a large river froze solid, separating the two halves of the town, a group of young engineers from the city arrived. They brought plans to build a modern ice bridge, using reinforcement technology and temperature monitoring systems. Vigo immediately dismissed their idea. "How can ice be durable? Only wood is eternal," he grumbled. He considered these new ideas inexperienced and unreliable. But the young engineers didn't argue. They simply showed through action. They invited Vigo to join the project, respecting his experience but also patiently explaining the scientific principles behind the new ice technology. They showed him how sensors measured the slightest temperature changes, how special materials were mixed into the ice to enhance its durability. Vigo initially remained skeptical. He watched the young engineers work, sometimes making critical remarks. But when he saw how meticulously they calculated, how they used precise tools he had never seen, and how the ice bridge gradually formed with solidity, something within him began to change. He realized that the knowledge he had accumulated wasn't wrong, but it was no longer the whole story. He had learned so much, but he hadn't learned how to adapt, how to change his perception of the world. One day, a section of the ice bridge cracked due to an unexpected underground current. The young engineers panicked. Vigo, with his years of experience with ice and underground water, quickly identified the problem. He not only used his old knowledge but also combined it with what he had learned from the young engineers. He proposed an innovative solution, combining the use of new reinforcing materials with an ancient technique for diverting underground currents. Thanks to the combination of Vigo's long experience and the young engineer's modern technology, the ice bridge was repaired in time and became stronger than ever. The townspeople safely crossed the icy river. Vigo not only saved the bridge but also found a new purpose in life. He was no longer a craftsman stuck in the past, he was a person constantly growing, constantly learning. He proved that when you stop learning, you stop growing, and continuous learning is the lifeblood to overcome all barriers of time and change. Vigo's ice bridge, now, was not just an engineering feat, it was also a symbol of continuous learning, of a mind always open to embracing new things. The lesson learned. The story of Vigo and the ice bridge profoundly illustrates the theme: when you stop learning, you stop growing. The core lesson here is that continuous learning is an essential requirement for individuals and their skills to constantly develop, adapt to a changing world, and maintain relevance and value in any field. Even the most experienced individuals need to continuously learn to avoid being left behind and to continue contributing. Vigo, a talented artisan trapped by traditional skills, was at risk of being left behind by time. Only when he realized he had stopped learning and opened himself to new ideas from the younger generation could he grow, innovate, and rediscover his passion and value, proving that personal development is an ongoing journey. The inspiring lessons are: learning is a lifelong process. No matter how much experience you have, the world always has new things to discover and learn. Openness to new things. Don't let complacency or prejudice prevent you from embracing new knowledge and ideas, especially from younger people or other fields. Combine experience and innovation. Experience is valuable, but it becomes even more powerful when combined with a spirit of learning and innovation. Adapt to survive. In a constantly changing world, the ability to adapt through continuous learning is crucial for survival and growth. Limitless personal growth. As long as you keep learning, you can continue to grow and reach new heights in life and career.
Story 249. The Melody of the Heart. This story deeply explores the theme of the value of true friendship, emphasizing that you don't need too many friends, just one true friend to overcome all challenges together, especially in a competitive and lonely modern society. In a small alley of the bustling Hongdae district, Seoul, South Korea, where cafes were filled with K-pop music and neon lights glowed from fashion stores, lived two young women, Ji-woo and Sora. Ji-woo was an idol trainee, spending her days practicing dance and vocals, constantly facing fierce competition. Sora was an ambitious fashion designer, but she always felt lost and misunderstood in the glamorous world. They were two completely different people, yet they were the best of friends. Ji-woo had many fans on social media, thousands of virtual friends, but when she felt exhausted or disappointed, no one truly understood the pressure she was under. Sora also had many acquaintances in the fashion industry, but these were superficial relationships, based on mutual benefit. Both had heard the saying, "You don't need too many friends, just one true friend." And for them, that true friend was each other. One day, Ji-woo was dropped from her idol group's debut lineup, a huge blow to her dream. She felt her whole world collapse, and all her virtual friends seemed to vanish. At the same time, Sora had her ideas copied by a famous designer, costing her a big opportunity. Both were plunged into extreme disappointment and loneliness. Ji-woo closed herself off in her practice room, refusing to see anyone. Sora locked herself in her apartment, not wanting to see anyone from the fashion world. However, they didn't let each other sink into despair. Sora knocked on Ji-woo's practice room door, bringing food and listening to her cry without judgment. Ji-woo called Sora, encouraging her to get up and fight for the copyright of her ideas. They were the only ones who truly understood each other's pain. They didn't just comfort each other, they also worked together to find solutions. Ji-woo began composing music, writing melodies filled with sadness and hope. Sora began designing new clothes, inspired by her most authentic emotions. They relentlessly pursued their goals, but this time, their efforts were fueled by their solid friendship. They practiced together, experimented together, and faced challenges together. Ji-woo realized she didn't need to become an idol in the traditional sense. She could be an independent musician, performing her own compositions. Sora decided not to work for big designers anymore. She wanted to launch her own fashion brand, with unique and personal designs. They continuously strived, persistently following their new paths. Ji-woo performed in small cafes, uploading her music to online platforms. Sora organized small fashion shows in night markets. They faced many difficulties, but they always had each other to encourage them. Eventually, one of Ji-woo's new songs unexpectedly went viral on social media. Its authentic melody and touching lyrics resonated with millions of people. At the same time, a famous fashion blogger discovered Sora's designs and helped her promote her brand. Ji-woo became a successful independent musician, loved for the authenticity of her music. Sora built a unique fashion brand, sought after by young people. They didn't need to become famous in the traditional way, but they succeeded on their own terms, thanks to each other. Ji-woo and Sora never forgot the difficult times and the friendship that helped them overcome everything. They knew that it's not the quantity of friends, but the quality of relationships that truly matters. They proved that a true friendship is not just a shoulder to lean on, but also a constant source of motivation, helping us pursue our dreams and find true happiness in life. The melody from their hearts, now, was not just music or fashion, it was a love song about eternal friendship. The lesson learned. The story of the melody of the heart profoundly illustrates the theme. You don't need too many friends, just one true friend. The core lesson here is that in a modern society full of pressure and loneliness, the value of a true friendship, deep understanding, and sincere support is immensely precious. One true friend can be the greatest source of encouragement, helping us overcome loneliness and find the strength to pursue our dreams. Ji-woo and Sora, despite having many acquaintances and virtual fans, only found true comfort and strength in each other when facing failure and despair. Their friendship helped both overcome personal difficulties and achieve success in their own ways, proving that quality matters more than quantity in friendship. The inspiring lessons are: quality over quantity, genuine, deep friendships are more valuable than hundreds of superficial relationships. The power of understanding. A true friend is someone who understands your pain, dreams, and pressures without needing words. Friendship as a motivator. A true friendship not only comforts, but also inspires and motivates you to keep striving. Sharing the burden. Having a true friend helps us not feel alone when facing challenges, as you can share the burden. Friendship shapes the path. True friends can positively influence your choices and your journey in pursuing your dreams.
Story 250. The Dance of Vitality. This story deeply explores the theme of the connection between physical and mental health, emphasizing that a strong spirit often originates from a healthy body, particularly within the vibrant cultural context of Southeast Asia. In a small village along the Mekong River in Cambodia, where ancient Apsara dances were passed down through generations and life was intricately tied to the river's rhythm, lived a young woman named Lena. Lena was a talented Apsara dancer, but she was struggling with persistent joint pain from an old injury. Her weak body hindered her from practicing and performing, making her feel as though she had lost her purpose in life. Physical pain had gradually eroded her spirit, causing her to lose the grace and joy in every dance move. She had tried to seek various treatments, but nothing provided lasting relief. Everyone in the village worried about her. Even the dance masters sadly watched her talent slowly fade. Lena felt desperate, fearing she would never be able to dance Apsara fully again. She remembered a saying she often heard from her masters: a strong mind begins with a healthy body. But how could she achieve a healthy body when she was constantly in pain? One afternoon, as Lena sat sadly by the riverbank, an elderly wandering woman from a distant mountain tribe arrived in the village. She was a traditional herbal healer, and she saw Lena's physical and spiritual pain. She didn't say much, simply smiled and invited Lena to follow her. The old woman didn't use magical elixirs. Instead, she taught Lena gentle stretching exercises, deep breathing techniques to bring energy to each joint, and how to use local herbs for massage and warming the body. Mrs. Lena taught her how to listen to her body, how to respect its limits, and how to recover little by little. She also taught her simple meditation techniques to calm her mind and connect with the flow of energy within her body. At first, Lena felt discouraged. The exercises were very slow and gentle, unlike the powerful dances she was accustomed to. Her body still ached, but the old woman was always patient, always reminding her, strength comes not from never falling, but from getting up every time you fall. And to get up, you need a strong temple. Every early morning, Lena and the old woman practiced together under the dawn light by the river. Lena relentlessly put in effort, even with the smallest movements. She learned to transform slow movements into the graceful flow of water. She learned to breathe to calm her mind and dispel pain. She spent time exploring herbs, preparing traditional remedies herself. Gradually, Lena began to feel her body grow stronger, and her mind also became clearer and more serene. As her body slowly recovered, Lena's spirit was also strengthened. She no longer felt helpless. She began to practice Apsara dances slowly and carefully. She no longer tried to force her body but instead listened to it, letting it guide her. Her dance was not just about technique but also had a serenity, soul it had never possessed before. One day, a large traditional dance event was held in the village. Lena, encouraged by the old woman, decided to perform. Her dance was no longer a display of strength but a subtle expression of grace, resilience, and profound joy. The audience was completely mesmerized. They saw not just a beautiful dance but also a story of recovery, of the power of will. Lena not only returned to the art of dance but also became an inspiration for the entire community. She proved that to pursue a grand dream, we must start by taking care of ourselves, because a healthy body is a solid foundation for a resilient spirit, ready to overcome all challenges. Lena's dance, now, was not just art, it was also a symbol of health, perseverance, and an unwavering will to thrive, bringing dawn to both soul and body. The lesson learned. The story of the dance of vitality profoundly illustrates the theme, a strong mind begins with a healthy body. The core lesson here is that physical and mental health are intimately and inextricably linked. A healthy body is a solid foundation for developing a strong mind, providing us with enough energy, focus, and willpower to pursue our dreams and overcome all difficulties in life, especially when facing illness or injury. Lena, a talented dancer, was hindered by illness and almost lost her passion. Only when she focused on restoring her physical and mental health under the old woman's guidance did she find the strength to return to dance, and even perform with more depth and meaning than before. The inspiring lessons are: health is the most precious asset. Do not underestimate your physical and mental health. It is a decisive factor in your ability to pursue dreams and face challenges. The mind-body connection, taking care of your body is also taking care of your soul. When the body is healthy, the mind will be clearer, more positive, and more resilient. Listen to and respect your body, learn to recognize your body's limits and recover patiently. Perseverance in self-care. Restoring health requires time and persistence, just like practicing any skill. Strength comes from balance. True strength lies not only in muscles but also in the harmony between physical and mental well-being.
Thank you for listening. Goodbye and see you in the next short stories about life.